Okay, hello everyone. Welcome to Being Patient Brain Talks. I'm Deborah Kahn, founder of Being Patient. Our guest, Teepa Snow, needs no introduction to most of you out there. Certainly, she is a star of her own right. Caregiver extraordinaire. All questions any of us have about caregiving, Teepa just gives you the best answers. Teepa, so
No
great to
pressure,
see you.
Deborah. No pressure there.
Well, I'm going to start with a story within my own family that I want to share with you. So, we were recently having lunch with my mom, who is in a later stage of Alzheimer's now, and she's losing words. And it's almost like she knows what she wants to say, but she can't express it. So there's a lot of frustration in there. And we noted lately she's starting to bang on the table, like really disruptively. Like she'll take her spoon and bang it on the glass repeatedly over and over again, almost like a plea to listen to me, right? And I could see my dad was getting irritated because he was trying to say something, and my mom's like, bang, 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 bang. And all of a sudden, Teepa comes into my mind. And I turned to my sister and I was like, step into her world. And I said, Teepa says, step into her world, step into her world. And I start banging on the glass with her. And the weirdest thing happened, Teepa. Started the same thing. So we're all banging on the glass. She starts to laugh. She's like laughing. I'm like, wait, you're in a later stage of dementia and you can't really express yourself, but you get the joke. How is that? Tell me about that.
So what happened was she finally felt heard because you got like, I can't get the words out, but I really want people to pay attention. And you started paying attention, and pretty soon everybody was like, it worked. It was just like joyful. And it was funny, but it's also joyful. Look, I got them to listen to me. And they didn't argue with me. They didn't tell me I was wrong. They just listened and they came along with me. And what could give you more joy than to feel like instead of being ignored or getting frustrated and somebody's frustrated back at you, you felt heard. And she wanted something and she couldn't figure out the thing that she wanted, and what it might have been is just to be listened to or heard or believed.
Yeah, and I can imagine how frustrating that must be. You have thoughts coming into your mind and you can't express them, right? And it's like she's grasping for words. I can feel it, and she's like, like that, So, I mean, it was actually a wonderful experience just to see her laugh with us too. We were laughing together, right?
And what happened with the spoon after that?
Oh, she stopped. It's like, don't bang on the glass. It's annoying, right?
It was like, point made. I don't need to do that anymore. The reason I needed to do it is nobody was listening to me.
Yeah.
Now that you're listening to me, well, that's good. And we had a good moment. And that's all I was really looking for, is I wanted to have a good moment with you. And I couldn't figure out how to do it. And it
Yeah.
seems like when we get together, it's really hard because I know there's so many things I could say and I can't think of a single one in this
Yeah.
moment.
Absolutely. Okay, so the purpose of this talk isn't for me to talk to Teepa, although I could spend hours talking to her. It's for you guys to ask questions because she's generously given her time for any questions you want to ask, within reason, I should say, about caregiving, looking
Try
after
anything. I
someone.
just don't know whether I can help, but we can try. Sure.
Yes, looking after so someone just is writing as we were having this discussion about communication, asking my question is about working with veterans that have dementia on hospice, particularly those veterans that are having aggressive behaviors and aren't able to communicate well. I guess the question is, how do I communicate with someone, whether they're a veteran or not, who is exhibiting aggressive behaviors? That's a good question.
So I'm going to go to, he is communicating quite well. What he's communicating is, I don't like or trust what's going on here right now. And it's scaring me, or it's making me angry, or it's frustrating me. Sort of like your mom with the spoon on the glass. Only this is when you try to do things to my body that I can't figure out how to do things with, it really gets. Ugh. And it could be literally, it could be fear of movement, because when I've lost the ability for my brain to move my body and you move my body, and it's such a startle. It would be like somebody came from behind you on stairs and just shoved your body real quick. And it was like, whoa. And that sense of being attacked, being hurt. And even though that's not what you're doing, that's not why you're doing it, but the perception from the other side, if we could quit maybe using the word aggressive and start going, wow, really reactive, super reactive, physically reactive. Rarely have I seen people out of nowhere, not even with somebody leaning. I mean, again, you lean over them and you say, it's time to get up. Ah! If you scare me, then you started it. Now, I don't mean that people intentionally start this negative interaction, but if I can't put myself on the other side of the equation and imagine what would it be like if I were lying down in the bed and someone would lead in and basically get in my face and say, I'm going to get you up now. And the first thing I heard or saw was you that close. So my usual recommendation is let's take a step back and let's see if we can rewind here and see if we can figure out some of the perception that might be happening. Could it be the vision loss? Could it be the comprehension loss? Could it be the loss of the body and the brain to talk to each other? And if that's the case, then I want to assess it before. So before I do anything to the body, I'll go, Deborah, hey, because this is a universal sign of I come in peace, nothing in my hand, and then I make an offer to you. If you interpret my offer and you start to try to do something with your hand, my brain knows your brain. Aha, you got it. So now I can do another motion, roll. And what I try to make sure I have is what we call hand under hand when I do something, so that if they don't like it, the first thing they might do is grip tighter or try to get away. And that's my signal. Ooh, okay, lost him again. Shoot, I thought I had him, lost him. So it allows me to be tuned in. And it's really a case of tuning in and tuning up. And so giving people tiny baby step instructions. So Deborah, like right there, right on your, right there.
Is this diversion? Are you trying to
No.
like get?
No, like, so if you have something, I want to see if you could follow my cue to touch your own face.
Right.
So how did I break it down? Deborah, what was my first thing?
This, like you have something.
No, it's your name. See how you missed that?
Oh, sorry. Yeah.
I said, Deborah, and your brain immediately went, oh, she's talking to me.
Right.
So I got eye contact. And so now I know she's listening. And then I go, I showed you. And I said, right here.
And then I would do this to myself.
And if you did it to yourself, it meant, aha, my message got through.
Right.
If you didn't do it and I went right on you, and then I gave you my hand and took my hand to your mouth, it's less likely to cause you to startle because your brain got the messaging. And so one of the hardest things in late state is people who've had previous life experiences, like veterans, who have been in situations where they were attacked. There were bad things that happened to them. And they aren't used to women being around them, maybe that close. It can trigger lots of emotional distress. And so we want to be real careful with ourselves, because otherwise it's easy to blame them and not own our part of it, which is we weren't thinking as much as we needed to be when we were trying to help. And they're not able to think. I mean, that's the sad part. They're not choosing this. If they didn't do this before in their life, this isn't them. That's the dementia showing itself again. And it's not a choice. It's what's left.
Yeah. That's a really, really good point. There's a question that we had a lot of questions coming in, from Sue, and she said, my mother was diagnosed with mixed dementia and is now 86 years of age. Should I be concerned that she seems content to sit down all day, do nothing, and watch TV? I have seen this before. My mom watches a lot of TV as well. You know, as parents, we don't want our children to be under like the toddler, right, in front of the TV all the time. Is it okay with dementia? I mean, if it pacifies
this is
them.
the tricky thing. Yeah. So the tricky thing is, what have I got that I can still do?
Yeah.
And I'm 86, which means I have arthritis, more than
Yeah.
likely. It means when I move, it's uncomfortable. If I have some changes in my eyes, in my hand skills, in my body skills, it's hard for me to do just about anything, including processing what I'm watching on the TV. However, it's sort of like sitting in the seat of a car and being on a car ride. So I'm sort of taking in data passively. And for me, I'm at least getting some data. Now, do I think it's a cool idea to sort of offer episodes of other data? Absolutely. But I think for some people, they're very satisfied. And if I don't have a helper who can do other things with them all the time, for that human being, it may be very satisfying to sit in the car seat and watch the road go by. Now, I do encourage some in-between activities that aren't just self-care. I mean, it's not just trying to care for the body, but actually going, oh, look at that. And what I do is I cue in on whatever's on the TV and say, wow, that little boy. Whoa. Oh, hey, Deborah. Because then I went from paying attention to what you were paying attention, making a comment on it, and then seeing if I can get you to transition over to me for an interaction. I can use your help. 5 minutes. Come with me.
Yeah. Good advice. So we have another question. Sue is asking that her mom is seeming farther and farther gone these days. She said it's really sad to see, and she has such a hard time getting her words out to express herself, which is common, as we talked about. What can we do to connect? And it's so hard to tell what information she can actually understand. How do we tell that? Which is a great question. As we're having conversations, how much, I mean, she got the joke, as we talked about with my mom at the dinner table, when we all started to bang on the glass, she could laugh and connect with us, but how do we know what she's really understanding?
Yeah, so there are a couple things you can do. So for instance, with this situation, what were some of your mom's favorite songs when she was young? What'd she like?
I left my heart in San Francisco.
Oh, cool. So if I wasn't sure if she was processing, one of the things I'll start with, I left my heart in San Fran.
Right.
And so I'm waiting to see, will she fill in the blank? Because if she fills in the blank, she got it. She got the messaging of the song. So I'm going back to old familiar rhythmic. I'll start with that one. Hey, diddle diddle, the cat and the. And if I get you, there you go. And so you're going to sort of come in with that piece. Now, what happens is if I can get the right side of your brain, which is the rhythm side, to do some of this, then I could say, hey, Deborah, come with me. And you get up. What does that mean you just did?
Right.
You got
You
it.
understood.
And so what I have to remember for me is, because the impairment is significant in the language area, I don't want to start where it hurts. I don't want to start where we don't know for sure whether she's getting it. I'll start over in the music rhythm section, the counting section, something that I know she's still good at or still has potential to be good at, build on that side a little bit, and then see what happens when I come over here. And I'll start pretty simple with something to eat, and see what happens. Because if when I say something to eat and I hold this up, what am I looking to happen? What am I looking to have happen?
You're looking to see whether or not they understood. If
how would I know? How will I know?
Because she'll take it and eat it.
Oh, so she takes it, she puts it down on her lap. What do I now know?
That she doesn't really understand what to do with
She
it.
didn't quite get that. So next time I'm going to go, hey, Deborah, here. Because what am I giving her now?
A cue. Actually, one thing to note with you too, which I've noticed is a pattern in all of your answers, is you have two languages. You have a sign language and you have so you're giving signals with sign as well, and which reinforces what you're trying to communicate, right? So I have a question about that. Is sign easier than words at some point with dementia?
Absolutely. And it reminds me a lot of when I was very young teenager, I did work with autism. kids with autism. And what we found out is sign language. And children, actually, babies learn sign language before they learn to talk, because the ability to articulate and to get your mouth moved from sound to sound and get to words to come out is actually highly complicated. I can take in data better than I can get it back out usually. So I get receptive before I get expressive. So what I can do is I can use that. And if I go, something to eat, I gave you the messaging in a very common signing. And if I need a little more, then I add the object, because now it's not imagining that this is eating. I'm actually showing you eating. And then when I show you yours and I come alongside, and then you can actually copy me. So it's a process of figuring out where are you on the ability scale of appreciating what I'm trying to communicate.
Yeah.
And what are you trying to communicate?
That makes a lot of sense. I love the comparison too, as well, to kids and who have autism too. It just makes a lot of sense, right?
Well,
How
I
we
mean, the
interact.
same areas of the brain are impacted. It's just for different reasons in different ways, but it's the same areas of brain function. The
Yeah,
prefrontal cortex and the language center are highly involved.
yeah.
Yeah.
Sweta is saying my husband is 60 and has early onset Alzheimer's. He doesn't talk much. Is that normal? I mean, I guess it depends. If you can let us know what stage he's in, but early
How
onset,
much
is
did
it?
it talk before? I mean,
Yeah,
so one of the questions is how social males as a rule have a history of not being quite so verbally social as females, unless they have a purpose or a focus. They talk on the job all the time, but as a rule, the rule of males is you got to have something to do together in order to have a conversation. So often, I'll have guys and I'll go out to the car and I'll say, so you like this ride or not? And they'll go, well, it's a little showy. And it's like, well, do you think I should clean the windshield off? Probably. But I mean, I'm not sure whether it's dementia or just them, because the idea of back and forth. Now, if he was very verbal before and you're seeing this as a huge shift, then absolutely his loss of ability to produce language, and that's not uncommon with Alzheimer's young onset, means I have to really double check what he's taking in, because he may have a huge loss in what we call expressive, the ability to put it out, but not necessarily take it in. He gets it really well, or he might not get it at all. And that's really vital then, that we really start using a lot more cueing, a lot more information, and make sure that people know you don't just hand this and say, here, go ahead, put some lotion on. I'd want to make sure that we're going, here, we're going to do this. Got it? There we go. Yeah, now you got it. That's better. Good, good. So I have to, if I want to be successful and have a good match, I've got to be thoughtful about noticing what he's getting and not getting. And language, there's an actual form of young onset Alzheimer's that particularly robs people of the ability to speak. Hydropanic, if you want the word, but.
So we have another question that had come in from Jean asking, which I think is a good question. What's the difference between agitation and anxiety in people with Alzheimer's? And that's a great question, because agitation could just be for the moment you feel agitated, but anxiety could be, I guess I'm trying to differentiate, correct me if I'm wrong, but anxiety could be like more of a chronic issue, right? That if someone is more anxious, it's like a reoccurring problem rather
Well,
than
it's
just for the moment.
yeah, it's estimated that about somewhere close to 75% of people with a dementia experience a very significant anxious period of time, either morning or afternoon or day or hours. Anxiety tends to build up in someone when you can tell the thing is I start having more challenges with language. Another indicator of anxiety is a back and forth movement, a repeated hand motion, umming, a lot of umming, or I need a lot of stutter that I don't usually have. So when I transition into the next phase of, you don't get it, let me out of here, stop this, oh, get your hands off me. It's often will start with an anxiety that's unaddressed. We don't address and figure out what's going on with the anxiety. We find it irritating or bothersome, but we don't see it as, oh, that's when we should intervene. If I could figure out what to do with the anxiety during that time and take the anxiety back down, we wouldn't escalate to the agitated state, because agitation is the point where I can't take data in. I'm throwing data out. I'm just throwing it out. Anxious is where I'm nervous and I can't figure out the data, and I'm starting to worry about the data, and I'm having trouble, but I'm not to a place where I am shoving any incoming data away from me, because I just can't. Does that make sense?
That does make a lot of sense. And actually, those are very cues to look out for in order to determine what's what. Okay, we have another question, and this question does come up an awful lot. How do you know when it's time to move your loved one to memory care, if that's an option for you?
If it's an option, usually about 3 months before you're willing to ask me the question. I mean, I wish I were kidding, but the reality is, by the time you can get the question to come out of your mouth, most people who are doing this loving care really don't want to do that, for so many reasons. But one of them is it feels like failure. It feels like I should be able to do this. This isn't this hard. I don't understand why I'm struggling so much. So by the time you get to a place, how do you know when it's time? Frankly, women are exhausted and men are ready to throw their hands up because they can't figure out how to support the person that they want to support. I mean, and I'm generalizing, but males find it difficult when they can't reason through why they are not being successful at care. And women get frustrated because I can't get a break. I can't figure out how to take a break. I feel so, guess who's feeling anxious? Carers. And I'm worried about what would happen if I went to sleep and she got out the door. I'm worried about what would happen. He's really starting, I don't know whether I can do this much longer. So by the time we're really frequently, seriously considering asking this question, the answer is truly, it would have been better for both of us to have thought about doing this 3 months ago, because I would be in a better place to be thoughtful about where and what the options are. And they would have been in a better place with me not being so distressed that it feels like I'm trying to get rid of them versus we're trying something different, because we seem to be struggling some here. So the reason I say that is, 3 months ago is sort of like, it's hard to ask this question. And I find most people wait way too long to ask the question.
This next question dovetails really well into this, from Evelyn, who says, how do I cope with my loved one having this disease? She sounds like she's almost to that point. Sometimes I feel like I can't breathe. I love him dearly. My goal is to keep him safe, but sometimes it feels like I'm his mother, making rules, watching he doesn't break them. How do I manage all the jobs, roles that have become mine? And how do I deal with feeling guilty because it's just not good enough?
Ooh, yeah. So put one index finger up and I'm going to go, time to stop being the only person. Because one human being cannot be everything to another human being 24/7. It's just not possible. And by setting yourself up to fail, you'll fail. And so recognizing I can't do all this stuff, and I shouldn't, because there'll be nothing left of me to support this person I care about, because I'm using me all up and I'm not getting a refill. I'm not getting a break. I don't even have a time. I can't even breathe. And when we can't take in oxygen, that's pretty bad, because you need oxygen just to stay alive. And that often happens when the cortisol level is getting pretty high, because you feel threatened all the time. Every time you turn around, what's he doing this? Oh my God, what? No, 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 no. And you find yourself saying and doing things that disappoint you, because you're like your mother on a bad day, and you never want to be your mom on a bad day. You want to be the best mom, and you want to be the best wife, and you want to be the best. It's like, and it turns out you're human. It's so disappointing to be humans instead of like goddesses that get it all. And it's like, yeah, it's time to find somebody to talk this through with and say, I need help. And just say, I do need help.
Teepa, this was asked a while ago, and it seems right to bring it up right now. Is there such thing as a caregiving dream team? Like, what does that look like? When you say get help, what kind of care team should most people really have in place?
I would say somebody for me and somebody for the other person. At least two other human beings. One that and depending on me, I may need actually a group of people around me because I need multiple people to bounce things off of. And for others of us, just one person to go to and to talk with who is not going to give me advice, but instead is going to listen to me and help me think things through, talk things through, explore things. Maybe they're the one that does the phone call. Maybe I'm the one that does the phone calls. They stay with my person. And I think the other person needs another human being because we've got to start this split. We've got to start this process of realizing I can't be your all because I'll be nothing left. Oh, that's an ugly finger. So we've got to really get into this place where I acknowledge they need to get so used to another human being and comfortable with another human being that I can step away and breathe. I can do those things. And so a dream team is at least one for each. And I like a spare. I always like a spare because if one of those folks isn't available, I still need someone help. I need help. And it could be help with things that none of us are particularly good at. It may be managing a medical situation. It may be managing finances or managing legal issues, or maybe taking care of the house because I'm exhausted, or maybe it's taking the dog to the vet. I mean, for each person and each situation, there's going to be something special for you. What I'd say is taking stock of who you are, what you're good at, and really what you're not, and figuring out how to put the puzzle pieces together before you get in deep. Because this is an all life-changing kind of thing.
Yeah.
This is not, it's just, like, oh, now she can't move very well, so we're going to have to work on mobility.
Yeah.
Now we have
This is
language.
actually the next question is related to this. We all dread this time, but it does happen. Esther's asking, how do I begin to transition my 88-year-old mom with mid-stage Alzheimer's to wear incontinence products? She's beginning to have minor accidents, mostly when she's in bed at night. And I've noticed she doesn't even typically wear underwear under her pajamas at night. So,
Yeah, so we
this
have an old habit pattern.
if there's a normal stage of dementia, this is one of them, right? It's like we have to talk about this, and it does come middle, late. It comes, and
Yes.
I don't know anyone who's kind of lived through dementia who hasn't faced this.
Yeah. Loss of the ability to manage your bladder comes first in almost all dementias, and then the bowel problem starts a little later. It's just part of what we learn to do as children. And then unfortunately, the neurological failures result in me not being able to manage my bladder the way I did. So one of the tricky parts of me having habit patterns as an adult is I get used to what I get used to. And if I'm used to not having anything but my PJs on, then introducing something different feels wrong. And I keep trying to take it back off in middle state because it's not what's supposed to be on me in the bed. So start thinking about, okay, can I get a pair of PJ bottoms? And, there's products now online that are designed for leakage, and they look and act sort of like regular clothes, but they have a barrier to the outside so that you're less likely to have to change all the bedding. And you also want to start thinking about what can I do to the bed to protect the mattress so that I can start working on this, but I'm not going to get super frustrated if it takes us a while to figure it out. And I'd start in the day, not at the night, with the underwear being a little bulkier, a little bit more protective. Maybe putting in I wonder if your mom actually had a period when she was young. And did she use pads? Because back in the day, we would do pads when I was young. We didn't use tampons. I mean, those were the married women. And we had to use and you had to hook it on, and do y'all remember those things? Yeah, those were a long time ago, but some of you out there will remember. And so maybe during the daytime is when we practice. And so at night, it starts to feel less weird and unusual. Because it's going to take time and practice. So not waiting to the last minute.
Yeah, absolutely. I want to switch the conversation to a little bit of about, because we're talking more mid to later stage. I want to talk about the beginning because we get a lot of questions about the beginning. So what are some things that, I mean, nobody is really prepared for this journey, and you never think it's what it's going to be until you live through it, I believe, right? And so what would you say to people just really entering at the very beginning? What is important to understand and know? What should they be anticipating?
Yeah. So one of the most important things for me to understand is how well does my person appreciate what's happening? And if they have absolutely no awareness that there's change going on, I've got to develop a new set of skills. And it's going to be hard because what I notice they don't see. And if I start pointing out what they don't see, we end up getting in conflict because they think I'm making things up, I'm being ridiculous. And we start having this episode after episode of feeling wrong. So if, however, the person says there is something wrong, and I don't know what it is, being thoughtful and saying, so something feels really wrong. Do you think, Mom, it's more depression, or do you feel like it's more thinking problems or hearing problems? Tell you what, why don't we go get it looked at? And being curious about it, not being judgmental about it, and being willing to hear, not right now. How do you deal with not right now, which is a very common theme when I'm a little scared of what's coming as a person living with dementia, but also as a carer, like we won't do it right now. Maybe we'll do it. I'll bring it up later. I don't want to talk about it right now because she's in a good mood. And it's like, well, she's in a good mood. Now's a good time to actually say, so Mom, I have a question for you. How have things been going from your point of view? Really good, okay, or not so well most of the time? What would you say? But not being afraid to start exploring changes before they become these monstrous holes in the ground that you're trying to figure out, how do I get around this? I don't know what to do. She shouldn't be driving anymore. That means this has been going on for a bit, and now we're stuck because now it feels like I'm the traffic cop, and that starts to feel super uncomfortable in the relationship.
Yeah. I think when you're first beginning this journey, it's so shocking and you don't really know what's coming, that like when I look back, if I could do this differently, I think I would have had more honest conversations with my mom at the beginning, because she was still able to tell us what she desired, right? And I waited because you don't want to bring it up. It's uncomfortable. Your mom's losing her memory, it's a tough thing. So like I think back and I'm like, okay, should I have, like, I wish I had more honest conversations.
Yeah. So if I were to say to you, like, hey, Deborah, I have a curiosity. If it ever got to where you were not able to drive yourself anymore, and you would have to figure out how to get around, what would be your preference? Would you rather it be like somebody you know really well, or would you rather hire somebody so you didn't feel like you were burdening someone?
Get it on video. The driving thing is the worst. Then you can play it back and said,
Yes,
see, you
and you
told
say,
me.
well, we talked about it. I know this may not be sticking in your mind, but I actually asked, and you said if it ever got there, and the doctor is saying for right now, he doesn't want you to drive. So I'm going to implement our plan because you had said you wanted to use an Uber or some kind of system. So let's try it and see how it goes.
Wait, in all honesty, is that mean to video? Like if you're at the beginning stage and you're videoing this and pull back the video, is that mean? Is it
I
mocking?
will, well, it depends, if I'm using it as a weapon, but if I'm saying, Mom, I want you to watch something, because at one point we talked about if this ever got here. And I usually have Kleenex around about then because we both hoped it would never get here. But I think we're here because the doctor said no more driving right now. So I want you to see what you said when I asked you a while back.
Mm.
And all of a sudden, it's not a weapon. It's evidence that we did have this thought that it could at some point happen. And now we have a plan. And you came up with it. It wasn't me that came up with this.
Right. It is so true. Like, instead of, look, you said this, it's more like, look, thank you for letting me know you did say this. I want to show it to you, you know?
Yeah. Because I'm
It's
curious if you've changed your mind or if you're still where you are, because we have to do something, says the doctor. So which of these two now? Because before you said Uber, I'm wondering now, would you rather me drive or do you want to stick with the get somebody else to do it?
right, right. Okay, so Allison is asking in that beginning stage, she said, is hoarding common, and really what can I do about it?
Yeah, so gathering, hunting and gathering is one of the most primitive things when you feel threatened, because you want to have something when there is nothing. And so to gather and to hoard and to keep and to put it in a safe space and to hide it from other people, that's how you'll know you'll have it when you need it. And so it's a very common kind of theme for people who've had particularly deprivation at some point in their life. They were the have-nots. They had things they couldn't have at some point, and all of a sudden it's back in like form. So in those moments, one of the things that we want to think about is taking things away or threatening to take things away will do nothing but drive it deeper and make it a more profound fear. So, hey, Mom, I have a favor to ask of you. I noticed you have some magazines here. How about we see if we can organize those a little bit? Boy, look at that. You have the Times from 1967. I didn't even know they had Times in 1967. Oh, wow, look at that. You know what? Look at this one. And now all of a sudden, rather than seeing it as trash and the hoarding, what's happening is we're looking at these things. And what I might do is the bottom of the barrel, the bottom of the pile could disappear because I'm highlighting some of the things that are valued. And I don't want to do it in front of the person, but I do want to diminish some of the pile up so that I have a safer space for someone to be in.
Okay, well, in our case, it was blueberry baskets. So I don't know what you do about that one. I'm throwing it at you like it's not interesting. It's
You
not
know
like a
what,
magazine.
Mom, I went to the food bank, and you know, one of the things they're having trouble with is they've had trouble with the bags breaking. And they were wondering if there's any chance people had some baskets they could bring in. So when they gather this stuff up, it doesn't break the bag. And I thought, Mom has some of those. I wonder if you'd be willing to donate a few, just a few, to the food bank because they really could use them.
God, Teepa, you're good. Seriously.
Hey, when you've done this 40 years, you have lots of possibilities to like, okay, how am I going to get this to happen?
So, okay, another question is, and this one I totally get, and it's sad because I've seen this between my mom and my dad. This person has said, I feel like my loved one with Alzheimer's hates me. How do I deal with that?
Um, Look in the mirror at yourself and think about, okay, how did I sound? How did I look? What precipitated that? And often it's the desire to keep someone safe, to keep someone looking away or acting a way that we remember and want them to be. And we're pushing really hard. And what we're pushing is an agenda. And so one of the really hard things for us to do is really look at the agenda and say, is it worth it right now? Or do I really want to have a relationship right now, even if I don't get the agenda met 100%, because I'm going to have to let it go a little bit to find the space to be with somebody. And it's hard because like this person is like, ay, 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 she's making me nuts. And it's like, Mom, I need a hug. In that moment, it's just like find the thing that would make both of you feel better for a second and say, I'm sorry. This has been really hard and I'm trying and I feel like sometimes I'm not doing what you like. And I hate that for both of us.
That's a
Acknowledge.
really, yeah, that's really great advice. Okay, Barbara is asking, my sister is in a memory ward.
Mhm.
She has a guardian who does not share her medical information with us. My other sister wants to record my sister while asking a question. This sounds like a lot of family strife.
Yes.
Example, how many sisters do you have? If she answers correctly, her next question will be, do you agree that your guardian can share your medical info with us? I'm not supportive of this approach, as I don't think it's fair to ask and film those questions of someone who struggles to remember who your sisters are. What are your thoughts on this strategy?
Well, this is challenging because if you have a good guardian, they would say that can't stand up in court. I can't, because unfortunately, if I do, so Deborah, are you okay with everybody knowing that you don't have any underwear on right now? And you started nodding your head yes. Are you saying yes because you got the content of the message I sent you, or because I was nodding my head yes and you are agreeing to, and I'm smiling and you're answering me? And the reason we try to protect people as they develop dementia is that they are incredibly vulnerable. And yet I also hear the pain from the sister feeling left out and not considered and not valued for having potential to make a difference or to offer something in regard to medical support and care. So it's a very painful situation. And I would say out of every 5 families, 4 out of 5 times we're getting to this place where there's a lot of pain in relationships because we haven't done the pre-work that we talked about, or there's old history that makes it super hard to be in a place of comfort during dementia. So I would say, what can we do to be supportive of your sister in memory care versus trying to trick her into, not trick, trying to get her to agree to something that we want? And even if you do it, I'm not sure it's going to result in the outcome that you're looking for because of the regulations and rules that the guardian operates under. And yet I hear your pain, and I do hear it, and I hate that you're there, but it's unfortunate that it got that far, and it's really too late in the disease to try to revise that typically,
Yeah.
unless you find a way to work with the guardian in a very different way.
Carmen is asking, and this question always comes up where full disclosure, we have this problem in our family as well. My mom, when she's in the shower, Carmen's asking, how can we encourage showering, washing hair, and wearing clean clothes? I mean, we're at the point right now where when my mom gets in, and I've given them your videos and everything, her caregivers who are lovely and like bring so much joy. But ultimately, when my mom gets in and feels her skin, it sounds like she's getting murdered. She's screaming so
Yeah,
loud.
exactly. I mean, and that's the thing we can't put our head around, is how intrusive water is when you can't actually see it and it just attacks you. And it's not comforting, it's not calming, it's distressing. And so for many people, I can get a wash up with just hitting the high spots, and I can figure out how to use it's not my favorite, but I can use the powdered shampoo. I can figure out ways to help people get wet. We can go out in the rain when it's warm, and then we have to change our clothes. I create opportunities to get cleaned up, but I have to let go of the pattern of being clean and showering because it's traumatizing. And it's just hard for us to accept it's traumatizing because we find showers to be, but when we notice that's not the case for our person, we've got to figure out how to let go of our opinion and recognize the evidence right in front of us, that it's not working. And then we build in some opportunities for shifts, and they won't be everything we want, but trust me, it's not everything they want either.
Yeah. Okay, this next question is a tough one. I'm curious. I haven't never asked you this before, but I want to know what your answer is for this one, because it does come up from time to time. How do you handle dementia and an existing romantic relationship? And I think that's the nice way of saying, should you be having sex with somebody who has been diagnosed with dementia?
Yeah.
Full stop.
And yeah, and so the answer is, wow, it really depends on a lot of factors. I have some friends who are living with dementia, and their particular state and type of dementia, they know what they're involved in, and they're very comfortable continuing to have a relationship with somebody they really dearly love. I have other friends who no longer enjoy being touched and want that. I have other people who one partner is less involved than the other partner, and as a matter of fact may not even have dementia, and they're comfortable cuddling and hugging and even kissing to some extent, but they do not want to have intercourse. And so, they draw the line. That feels wrong. Cuddling and holding feels comfortable. Intimate touching feels uncomfortable. And so boundaries may change. I would say that most of the carers that I know who've been in a romantic relationship with their partner will find a place when the care load is about as much as the love load. That when it starts to shift the other way, it starts feeling like this isn't right anymore. And some parts may still be okay, and others would be much more of a challenge.
But is it true? I've heard this. People in our community have said that their partner's sex drive suddenly accelerates out of nowhere, right? They might not have had sex
Yeah.
in a long time and
Yeah.
suddenly they
Suddenly
want to
it's
have
all
it.
up. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that is actually pretty rare. It does happen, but it's actually fairly rare. We see it most in frontal temporal type dementias and young onset frontal and chronic traumatic encephalopathy kinds of things where there's a frontal release or alcohol related dementia. We don't see it as much in classic older adult onset Alzheimer's or late Alzheimer's, or we don't see it in the language variant nearly as much. And we won't see it in things like posterior cortical atrophy. That doesn't tend to be one that does it. Lewy body, it will go from 0 to 60, just like Lewy body. But it'll come and go, it'll fade, and it'll get intense, and then it's all gone, and no interest at all in even being touched. I don't want to even be touched. So it's highly variable. We think some of it might have to do with a combination of testosterone and estrogen, sort of acceleration activity level, but it could also be due to sensory stimulation. Like when I go to the bathroom, suddenly I'm getting stimulated in a way that before it was just going to the bathroom. I knew the difference. Now my brain is confused about the difference. And all of a sudden it feels like something I should do more with. Or I wipe myself after I go and it's like, oh, that's exciting. So sometimes sensory experiences can charge up the brain to a place where I start doing things that otherwise I wouldn't. And sometimes it's not even about sex, frankly. It's just about touching. It's about touching all kinds of things, putting things in my mouth. And sometimes looking at, interesting. I'm wondering if, we need some other things to touch and some things to do with our hands and some things to put in my mouth that are things that feel safer and less intrusive.
Absolutely. Okay, that's really great way of looking at it. That question does come up all the like not
It
all the time, but quite a few
comes
times.
up. I mean, it does
Yeah.
come up. And who do you talk to? I mean, and
Yeah. Yeah.
I had one person that they asked the doctor, what can I do? And he said, well, are you asking for Viagra? And it's like, no, I am not asking for Viagra. Are you crazy? No. It was
God,
just like,
no.
talk about a loss of paying attention. It's like, no, that's not.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, to wrap it up, I want to know, what is like the most requested, or is there something that you can share with us that you wish that more caregivers knew? Like, is there something that just comes off the top of your head?
Give yourself grace and then get smart. I mean, first of all, be willing to give yourself a break. I mean, you're doing the best you know how. Nobody educates you in this field until you're in it. And then you have to go find it often yourself. Nobody's saying, here's what you need to, like if this is coming up, here's where you go, here's what you learn, here's how you try it out, here's how you practice. I think you're expected out of everything else you're doing to figure out where to go get what you need to do this incredibly intense job you've been asked to do. Actually, and sometimes the person didn't even ask you, and you're still feeling that desire to help. And I would say we have to be more forgiving of ourselves, because I think we want so much of ourselves, we make it impossible as carers to feel good about what we are doing, and yet be willing to learn some more things to do what we're doing, even with less distress.
Absolutely. Teepa, I could talk to you forever, and I wish I could live with you because you make everything so much better. Or I wish you could live with us.
There you go.
You make
Might not work
everything
better for.
better. And I just want to thank you. I love these sessions, and I think they're so helpful to people just to have access to you. On that topic, though, for those of you who have joined us, most of you have heard of Teepa before, but for those of you who don't, go to teepasnow.com, where you'll learn all about her technique, which is known as positive approach to care, which is amazing, and it's something, a technique I still use, as I said at the beginning of this talk, every single day when I am having a problem with my mom. The first thing that comes to mind is Teepa's advice. What would Teepa say now is the question that all of us should be asking. You have a gift, and I'm eternally grateful for you, and so are thousands and thousands of people. I just wanted to actually you have a lot of resources. I know a lot of your resources are great, aimed at people, training people to be caregivers. But where should people be going to find, they're not going to always have access to live talks and things. So where can they go
We
on?
have a YouTube channel. We have Facebook posts every day. We have TikTok channel. We have things available on our website, short little videos. We have a whole library of online resources and blogs. And every Friday, I do a podcast, an audio podcast. So, we've got all kinds of stuff all over the place trying to help people live life well.
Yeah, and that's exactly what you have done. So thank you, Teepa. Thank you so much for this talk.
Thanks,
And
Sarah.
also for your time. For those of you who wanted to see more or might have missed some, please go to beingpatient.com. We always post either on our YouTube channel or the website. We post these talks in their entirety. We transcribe them, podcast version, anything you want. So thanks to Teepa. I can't wait to work more with you and continue to collaborate. You're the best.
Thanks, Deborah. Thanks for what you do to help people get what they need when they need it.
Awesome. Take care, everyone. Speak soon.